Hi everyone, and welcome to today's CalTrap training for the mobile version of CalTrap that's to be used on the iPad. This version of CalTrap will be used for those who will be using iPads in the field to record and capture trapping data. Once you've installed the application, go ahead and click on it to launch. It'll prompt you to enter your username and password, and then go ahead and sign in. While we're waiting for the map to load, I want to preface that some assumptions will have to be made. Hopefully everyone has seen the administrative version of CalTrap and how that operates on the desktop or in a web browser format. Other assumptions would be that folks would have created surveys, routes, and added users and vehicles, and have vehicles assigned to those users, and have users assigned to a specific route assignment. All of these parameters need to be in place before we continue on with this. Today we'll be looking at two functions for this application. The first part of this training will be focused on deployment and how to deploy traps. And then the second part will show you how to service those traps, including relocations and removing traps as well. And then at the end, we'll kind of go over some troubleshooting tips and maybe some advanced trapping techniques and other functionalities that this app can provide. We'll start with some discussion regarding menus and workflows and kind of go from there. When you first log in, obviously you will see a map in the main center of the screen here. This dot will indicate your current position for the satellite. Down in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see an indication of the accuracy of that GPS. This button right here, if you tap on it, it will geolocate where you currently are, which is practical when you're in the field and you need to locate your position. On the left hand side, you have your main menu: Search, Start and Work, Trapping Dashboard, Manage Hosts, Host Advisor, Manage Sites, and the Trap Shelf. The search bar is simply just for you to search things. We will go this in a little bit more detail later. It can cover many different types of search, such as an address, such as a particular tree that you're looking for, or just entering a trap type, such as McPhail or Jackson. There are several parameters for this, which we'll go over in detail later. Next, we have Start and End Work. Most of the time, your day will begin by clicking on this. Trapping Dashboard, Manage Hosts, Host Advisor, Manage Sites, and the Trap Shelf will not work unless you have started work. So for instance, if I were to click on the Trapping Dashboard, you would get a notification saying that you must start work before opening the Trapping Dashboard. Upon clicking Start Work, you're prompted to enter a route, a vehicle, and a starting odometer for the day. Then you can go ahead and click on Start Work. If you click on the route, you may notice that you can be assigned to more than one route. This functionality is good and applicable for users such as in a rover position, or if you want to assign someone to more than one route at a given time. For a vehicle, a user can also be assigned more than one vehicle in the case that they need to switch out for a spare truck or use more than one vehicle at a given time. And last, we have the starting odometer. They could just enter that at the beginning, and then once they do that, then go ahead and click on Start Work. While we start work, I want to explain what's happening here. we've learned that there are many users while working in the field who will face connectivity issues because of poor or low signal strength. For that reason, when the user clicks on Start Work, the app is currently downloading the entire route onto the iPad, and it's locally stored on the iPad for the duration of this work. When you come back and you can end work at the end of the day, it will connect to the internet again, upload all those changes, and bring you back online. As you can see, it took about 20 to 30 seconds just now for it to download the route 1901 that we're using today. Typically, on an LTE connection, we've seen it range anywhere from 2 minutes all the way up to 5 to 6 minutes sometimes, maybe even more. The reason for this variance depends on how large that route is and how many grids are included in that route. Obviously, if you have a bigger route, it's going to take a little bit more time to download. Also, if this is the first time you're launching the application, it's going to be downloading a lot of the layers for the entire base map for the county. So the first few times you're launching it, it will be a little slower, but it will gradually get faster and faster as you're using it more often. Once it's done downloading the route, you get a confirmation screen to indicate that the data has downloaded successfully, and now you can start work. Press OK. Upon looking at the screen, you will see that the route has only downloaded the grids that are specific to that route. The entire base map for the county has disappeared. We've included one additional square mile as a buffer for the grids in instances where you can kind of see how the grids extend beyond the border. And so by adding a buffer around, it would just allow you to see the map a little bit better. Let's look at the information that is in the map area right now. You obviously see that there are some squares and some triangles. The symbology in this case indicates that a square is for a McPhail, a triangle is for a Jackson trap. Green traps indicate that that trap has been serviced, and everything tied to that trap, such as baiting, relocations, replacement if applicable, are all on time. Traps that you notice are orange indicates that a trap is due for service. There's one more color that's not visible here, and that is red. A red trap indicates multiple things. It can indicate that that trap was skipped, or that trap is way past due. But we'll cover that at a later time. Let's go ahead and click on the trapping dashboard. The trapping dashboard is one out of the two ways to navigate your work when you're out in the field. Think of your trapping dashboard to be equivalent to the books and binders that you currently have for that route. If the book is on the shelf, obviously the route is made up of a compilation of those binders and books, and you open up the books, you see the grids, and inside the grids you'll see the trap sheets. So we've tried to organize the trapping dashboard in this fashion. Now, during this time, you're probably wondering why it's taking the dashboard so long to load. What it's actually doing here is it's calculating all the traps within this route. What does this mean? It's trying to determine how many traps are on time, how many traps are due for service. It's also trying to calculate the trap that is latest and needs and is due for service. It's also trying to calculate if there are any traps that need relocations, and so on and so forth. The only thing that it won't remind you in the app right now is your baiting schedule. The reason for this is because every county seemed to have a slightly different way and methodology on how they bait. For that reason, we feel like each county or CDFA is responsible on how to monitor that for the quality control portion for trapping. All right, let's go over what this menu means. Obviously, it's indicating that this is route 1901. Again, the nomenclature is the first two numbers indicate the county, and then the next two numbers indicate the route. Next, we have a trapper bulletin. The trapper bulletin, if you recall, happens in the creation of a survey or a route. On the administrative side, if you were to add notes, that note will appear here for the trapper bulletin. So an example could be a supervisor would say, Qua, this route is assigned to you today. And then that will show up here. Right now, it's showing that there are a total of 89 traps that need servicing, and then it's listed all down here. Now, if you were to click on each one of these books, as if you were to pick a binder from the shelf, you will see that the map shows the highlighted area of what book 1 is. I'm going to switch over to book 2, book 3, and book 4. Okay, so let's say I'm going to go to book 1, and I'm going to open that book. Upon opening that book, you're normally presented with a list of grids, and that's what we see here. If you were to click on a specific grid, it will go ahead and highlight that grid for you on the map. And then if you continue to click, you will see additional grids that you're selecting. So let's select on this one, and let's go ahead and open the grid. Notice that each time you open the grid, the map now automatically zooms to that specific grid. So if you were to minimize this window, you can see that your 1 square mile is presented in full screen mode. Here in this particular grid, we see that there are 2 traps that need service, and actually they are in both location. One is at 6119 Birdie, and the other one is at 5834 Blackbird Lane. If you were to click on that particular site, it's going to be highlighted. You can see one is right here, and then the other one is over here. If I were to click on one of them and go ahead and open the site, it would take me to that specific site. On the site, we notice that there is 1, 2, 3 Jackson traps that are due for service. We notice that also this looks like it's a combo site because of a square icon here, but the Jacksons are what's due for service. If you were to click on each one of these traps, the options for you to service, unable to service, new trap, remove, relocate, and rotate the traps are all down here. You can access it from this menu, but I'm going to hold off, and then I'm going to show you another way to do it, and then we can do it that way. But ultimately, the steps will be the same. If you were to take a look at this particular site, we can see that the level of how much you zoom has been enabled to show a lot of information. If you were to click on the site, you will notice that it presents you with an address for that particular site. This becomes very useful as you're driving down the street and all the parcels look very similar. Secondly, we notice that we've also added the names of the trees on that particular property as well. If it doesn't show up, like let's say for this particular instance, this trap that's right here, go ahead and zoom in a little bit more, and that granularity will allow enough space for the label to display. Now, if you're wondering, well, how do I know what tree is this OF Jackson that's in, or this McPhail trap is in, you can go ahead and confirm by clicking down here. So a quick tap, let's say there's a lemon tree, you see it indicate that this is the lemon tree that's right here. To go back, go up in the upper left hand corner right here and click on this back button. Go ahead and click on the next tree, which is an orange tree. That's highlighted there. Go back, peach tree, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and cancel and then zoom out. Next, we're going to go over another way on how to work besides the trapping dashboard. If we were to zoom out and look at the entire route again, the next steps that I'm going to show would be for a user that has a little bit more experience. What I mean by this is, if you have a trapper who knows which grids are in which books for their specific route, they've been doing it for many years, and they don't really need so much the trapping dashboard to guide them through which traps that are due and which traps that aren't. In that case, you can dive straight into the map and work off of that. For instance, if you know that you're working off this particular grid today, you can just go ahead and zoom to that specific grid. Say these are the traps that need service. You can go ahead and click on the parcel. You will click on the trap that you're interested in. So in this case, this is 4740 Valencia Drive. You click on the McPhail trap, and now you're presented with a similar menu for service, unable to service, new trap, remove, relocate, rotate, and zoom to feature. Also take note of this menu right here. This will indicate what is due and what is not due. We know obviously this is a Jackson trap. We know that it's in a blood orange tree, fruit tree, and that the trap status is good. The reason why the trap status is good is because these three requirements for inspection, replacement, and relocations are not due. All of these three items have to be met in order for that to be good. If you inspected the trap and you replaced that trap, but you did not relocate, that trap will still remain orange, to remind you that you did not complete all the tasks. If, let's say, you went ahead and you relocated a trap, but you forgot to indicate that you had serviced that trap by performing an inspection, it would still also remain orange, to remind you that you need to enter some information regarding servicing that trap. We find that this way is a little bit more user-friendly and direct, instead of diving into the menu layers of the trapping dashboard. However, for a beginner trapper, the trapping dashboard is an excellent tool to guide them throughout their day. Okay, let me zoom out so that we can find a place to deploy a trap. I'm going to zoom to this particular grid here. And I'm going to go ahead and pick on this big parcel. To deploy a trap, once you arrive at the area, your GPS location will geolocate where you currently are. One of the parameters that we have in place is geolocation and geofencing and buffering and things like that. But one of the rules for geofencing is that your position has to be within 250 feet of the parcel line, which is the outline border right here. This requires the user to be present at that site in order to perform trapping. Now, if they happen to be farther than 250 feet from the border for whatever reason, they can still perform the trap, but they'll have to override it. So it's a soft rule. The same happens with relocations as well, but we'll get to that when we do relocations and servicing. Let's go ahead and select this parcel. I'm going to go ahead and tap on this. And we see some information here on the left-hand side. I think the first thing that we ought to take note is to make sure that this address for the parcel matches this address here. Just a quick check to making sure that the data is inputted correctly. If for some reason the information doesn't match, we want to make sure we address that and update either the assessor's parcel layer file or update our information somehow. We also notice that in here it lists that there is a peach tree on this in this lot, and obviously we can see that there's a peach tree right here. In order to deploy a trap, I'm going to click on that peach tree. I'm going to click Deploy Trap. Now, before I do that, let me go over what this zoom to feature means. So for instance, if my map is off-centered like this, if I click zoom to feature, it will center the information right into the middle of the screen so that it's easier for you to see. It won't zoom in very close because it just wants to center whatever it is, the extent in which your map is currently being displayed. Again, I'll move this screen up here. I click zoom to feature and it recenters itself. If I were to zoom in and do something like this now, the primary reason why we have this function is sometimes when you're out in the field, you may be lost in what you're looking for. So let's say I'm looking for different sites and I'm over here somewhere. Now I don't remember where I am. And that's where zoom to feature comes in handy. Okay, but I've digressed. Coming back, we're going to be looking at the site. We've looked at the tree. Let's go ahead and deploy a trap there. I get some information saying that it could not locate my current position. Would you like to proceed anyways? We get this error message because down here I've lost GPS signal for whatever reason, and so it's not able to locate where I am. If it did, you might get a prompt saying, hey, you're more than 250 feet away from this particular site. Do you still want to proceed? And you can go ahead and press OK. From here, it's going to ask you to select a pest type. Click on that. Once you click here, normally we're used to seeing a pull-down menu, but the menu now appears down here. So you would pick the trap that you would like. So here we have one for a Mexican fruit fly. Obviously we know that this is going to be for a McPhail trap. And this is all the requirements for this trap and what's going to be used in it. We'll go over deploy another trap in a moment. Go ahead and save. You get a confirmation that the trap had deployed successfully. Press OK. And then you now see that there is a square over the tree. From here, we're going to go back to the menu by clicking on the parcel. And you can now see that this particular site now has two pieces of information. There's a tree on this property, and there is a McPhail trap on this property. I'm going to go ahead and click on the McPhail. It has all the information that you can use for it right now. For the time being, we're just going to go ahead and remove it. Click on remove. We're getting another GPS error. Press OK. You get another prompt asking if you're sure you want to remove this trap. Go ahead and click OK. And it says successfully remove trap. Press OK. Now notice that the green trap is still on here, but this entire parcel has now turned gray. The reason for this is it's indicating that this site has now been used and it won't appear again for another 10.5 months. I'll explain a little bit more shortly. But the next question that we have is, what happened to this trap? I thought we had removed it. Well, it won't really update itself until you come back online. But for the time being, just know that the last entry we had, there was a trap here. And once you go back online, it will update itself. Okay. And actually, before we go ahead and do that, I just want to show you what Jackson traps look like. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use this next site over on this side here. Actually, let me see if I can show you how to use it on the gray site, just as a good example. Okay, I'm going to click on the gray site again. We now have an additional piece of information here saying that the last trap date was done today. Go ahead and click on the tree, and we're going to deploy another trap. Press OK, and you get another piece of information here saying that this site has already been used. Would you like to proceed anyways? So this is just in case, let's say you were at this site 10 months ago or 9.5 months ago, and for some reason the fruit trees came, had fruit earlier this year or ripe fruit earlier this year. We don't want this 10.5 month parameter prevent you from using a tree slightly earlier. So if you do, again, it's another soft rule that you can override, and just go ahead and click OK. And it's going to ask you to select the trap type again. So this time we're going to go with Jackson. So let's start with the McPhail trap. Go ahead and click OK. And normally we would just click Save, and it'll show up. However, this can be a little bit tedious and repetitive if you're deploying a Jackson trap, and in this case we're deploying 3 Jackson traps into the same tree. If you happen to run into this scenario, we've created the Deploy Another Trap button, slider button, that if you click on it, it will bring you back to this menu after you click Save. So I'm just going to go ahead and select McPhail trap, and have it deploy another trap after I'm done. So I'm going to click Save. Okay. We now see that there is a Jackson trap here. And you see how it brings me right back to this menu. I'm going to go ahead and click on the pest type again. Click on the next trap, a melon, for a melon fly. I'm going to keep this on still. I'm going to go ahead and save. Okay. I'm going to click on this again. I'm going to go to the OOF trap for Oriental Fruit Fly. Press done. But I won't have any more traps to deploy, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And then I'll click Save. Press OK. And the menu goes away. So now, if I were to click back onto this parcel, we can see that there is a McPhail trap, a melonfly trap, and an OF, and a peach tree. Okay. So that kind of concludes how to deploy traps and how to remove traps as we see it. Let me go ahead and go back in here and remove these traps. I'm going to click on this, click on Remove. Okay. Yes, I want to remove these traps. Okay. Now, as I'm working on this, a question might come up where people are wondering, is there any way I can group traps and remove them all at the same time? And the answer for the time being is, unfortunately, we can't do that. And the reason is because each trap has its own identity and parameters that are tied to that trap. Because we have tracking enabled for the history of each particular trap that's out there in the field, by grouping them, it wouldn't be able to document and record the data in a linear fashion at this time. Now, perhaps sometime down the line, we can incorporate that as an enhancement for the application. Okay. All right. Now, before I continue on showing you these other menu items, I'm going to go ahead and pretend as if we are done with the day's work, and I'm going to wrap up the work for the day and then show you what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. And I also want to show you how this site that's right here will update this information regarding the traps that we had deployed and removed. Okay. At the end of the day, once I'm done doing everything I need to do, I'm going to go ahead and click on Start and Work. Now the Stop Work menu looks a little bit different. It shows my name, it shows the information and everything that I accomplished kind of for the day. I'm going to enter my ending odometer. Let's say it's 5100. I'm going to add some comments saying maybe skip the trap and removed 2 traps. Something like that, right? Then down here, they're asked to enter basically a digital signature to confirm that all the information that was performed today was accurate and correct, and then go ahead and stop work. When you stop work, what is happening now is it's connecting back to the servers and uploading all those changes that we did for the day. Normally stopping work is a little bit faster because we don't need to download any base maps or any visualizations. We just kind of update the changes that were made in that given day. Once completed, you're going to get a confirmation saying that the work log successfully completed. At the end of this, a report for the day is also generated, and you can view that from the administrative side of the application, where you can generate a daily report, and then later on, as more data is collected, a weekly and a monthly report. And that's why it says work log was successfully completed. Go ahead and press OK. I'm going to minimize this window. Now, if you notice, we're completely back online because the entire map for the county is loaded. Let me go ahead and zoom in so that I can find that grid again. One of the things to note is, you notice how earlier, once all the data was downloaded, navigation of the map was so much smoother than when you're online. It's just that the data set that is downloaded is concentrated to just the route, and of course everything's localized. Right now we're county-wide, so it has to download and refresh everything across the entire county. So this here was the parcel that we used earlier. This was the peach tree that we had deployed and removed traps, and now we see that piece of information here. If I were to click on it, it would show information regarding this tree. You notice all the traps have been removed. When you're online, you are not able to perform any trapping functions, but obviously you're able to click around and get information about sites and what's on that particular site. Let's zoom out and let's go ahead and visit this particular site over here. If you click on this particular parcel, it's going to show you the address. There is a McPhail for a Mexican fruit fly that's on here, and all the trees that are available. Now, as mentioned earlier, you notice how these 2 trees don't have labels on them. That's because we need to zoom in a little bit more. Notice that once all of these trees appear, you also notice that the background has also disappeared. This has to do with a resolution issue, where if you zoom past a certain extent, the satellite map won't show up, and it will just show you the parcel lines, but all the tree locations will be present for labeling and whatnot. Okay. All right. From here, let's go back in so that we can work on how to manage hosts, a little bit of the host advisor, manage sites, and some more information about the trap shelf. Let's go ahead and start an in work. Notice that when we're back to start work, pretending it's like another day, the starting odometer has updated to pick up where you left off last. Now go ahead and start work. Because starting work can take minutes to download at a given time, we recommend that when users start their day, that they go ahead, start up their iPad, and initiate this process before going off and maybe preparing supplies and equipment for the day. It's a good chance to make sure that everything's working properly, so that by the time you get back, you have an idea of how much equipment you need, such as how many Jacksons to bring, how much bait to bring, so on and so forth. Okay. That's weird. The symbology is still there. I'm not sure what happened. Let's go back. I want to show you this part right now. Once you click on a site, you see that under the site information, there's a comment. It says use keycard, and then it says front, right? But if once you click on it, you see the comment that's listed here. Use keycard, front yard. So that's the instructions for placing the trap. I will have to explore as to what happened with these traps, but I think it just needs to be updated. And I think it's in conflict right now because I'm in a recording session, and the video or the app might not be able to refresh itself. So it's probably caching all these visualizations. Okay, let me go ahead and use this site, and we will go down the menu here. Let's go ahead and click on Manage Hosts. Obviously, if you have used previous viewers before or work on the desktop version, you will know how to manage hosts and manage sites. Obviously, the reason why it's categorized this way is because typically we would change the hosts more than the sites, but both tools are available. And we didn't want them right next to each other just to prevent any confusion. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Manage Hosts. I want to add a host. I'm going to, based on the instructions, it says click on Add New Host Location button and select the location of the map. You can do that, or you can just click on the parcel that you're interested in. Nope. Let's go back. Cancel. Manage hosts. Add new host location. Click on here. And complete the fields that are required here. So we can show site details if you want to know more information about the site, and then just go ahead and click on the tree category. Let's say it's just a common fruit tree. click on the type and then select the tree. Let's say it's an avocado tree, and go ahead and save. You get a confirmation saying that it was saved successfully, and then now you have an avocado tree. You click back on the parcel and the avocado tree shows up here. Now let's go back to manage hosts. Let's say the tree was in the wrong location. Let's go ahead and modify that host. Click on locate existing hosts. Click on it. That's selected. And let's say we made a mistake. This host was actually a fig tree. Okay, done. And then we also want to move it because it's in the wrong location. Let's go ahead and click on relocate host. And let's say it was actually over here. Go ahead and save. Now, once we have this, let me actually bring your attention to deactivate host, and why it says to deactivate and what that means, as opposed to just removing a tree. Because the tree historically has been existing, all this time, but for whatever reason the tree's been cut down or the tree died, we want to use the word deactivate instead of remove, just to not confuse the user as to what that means. So when you're deactivating a tree, that means historical data that is tied to that tree has still been kept. And starting from this point on, if you deactivate it, the record will not continue. However, in previous years, if the tree was used for trapping, the record will still be retained. So that's what this means here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save because we had changed the name and moved the tree. Okay, so now you can see that it's a different color. This is the symbology for a fig tree, and it's in a different location. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and we can see that it's a fig tree and where it is now. Okay, so I'm going to go back to manage hosts. We're going to also modify the host. We're going to locate the host right here. And this time we're going to remove the tree, and I'm putting that in air quotes, but we're actually deactivating the tree. And go ahead and save. Now the tree's been removed. Alright. Next, let's go over manage sites. This is typical to how you would create a site just as if you were in the admin version. Go ahead and click on manage sites, and let's create a single site. Select the parcel, and I'm just going to select this parcel right here. Okay, all this information has been pre-filled. There are a couple of areas in this menu that you need to complete, but I'm just going to pretend as if I don't know, and I'm going to hit save. Okay. Upon hitting save, it brings to my attention that this field is required, the site type, and the permission is required. If you click on site type, you will notice that you get to select if it's a residential or commercial area. Obviously this is residential. For permission, it will be either permission given or permission denied. Okay, done. It has a date and timestamp for that. The field for contact, phone number, and email is optional. If this is pertinent and applicable to the situation that you find yourself in, you can include this information. You can select if they have a dog or not. Is viable. I'll go over that in a second. And then you have notes and access notes. So this is a new feature we have instead of comments, because notes will indicate trapping location and where the trap is located on that property. Access notes is more of how do I get into that property. So gate codes, maybe some instructions such as call the owner or contact the owner before coming, things like that. The logic behind this was that we felt that nodes would change quite often, where access nodes may not. And we don't want the access nodes to be buried in the trapping nodes and get everything kind of muddled. So that's why these two are separated, just so it would kind of catch our eye. Once all of this is done, let's go back to what is viable means. Is viable means, if a parcel is viable, that means there is a trapping available host on that site, right? So this is a viable trapping site because it has host trees on there. Now, this definition for a viable site and a non-viable site is very similar to removing / deactivating a tree. If a site was viable for, let's say, 10 years, and now there are no more host trees on that property, it has become non-viable, and we would disable that site that way. Okay, but let me go ahead and create the site, save it first. Let me go ahead and save. Okay, we've successfully added a site. Obviously, we can go back to manage hosts and even add a tree. Okay, so let's say I'm just going to pick a random tree here, show the tree category, common fruit tree, go to tree type, an apple is fine. Go ahead and save. Okay, and then now you have an apple. So you can see once you understand the workflow, how quickly adding a tree is. It just seems a little bit cumbersome when everything's explained, right? Let's go ahead and click on the site. We're going to go ahead and remove that tree. Click on the apple tree. Sorry. We need to go to manage hosts. Modify the host. Locate it. Click on it. And deactivate the host. Save. Tree's gone. I'm going to click back onto the property. Manage sites. Modify that single site. Select that site. Click on the property. Scroll down. Mark that it is no longer viable. And go ahead and save. Okay. And you notice it's returned back to its original state. Now, although visually it looks like there's no record there, but historically we would see that a trapping site had been created and then now deactivated. So for a span of like 5 or 10 minutes, that trap existed in the system as a trapping site with one apple tree on it. Okay. Well, that kind of wraps up the starting and end work, trapping dashboard, manage hosts, and manage sites. I will go over Host Advisor in a little bit, and then the trap shelf is tied to servicing, so that will be for later. All right, let's dive into how the Host Advisor works, and I'm going to actually tie that to the search menu that's up here. Okay, looking at the Host Advisor, I want to bring your attention to one important factor, and that is most of the search functionality on the iPad is limited to the extent in which you are viewing the map. Okay, what I mean by that is if you were to look at what I'm looking at here on the screen, this will be the searchable area. It would only search here, meaning things that are below this side of the map or this side of the map will not be searched. Now, if I were to zoom out, this is now my new searchable area. I've just expanded my search. If I were to zoom in closer, I would have narrowed my search down to just these 2 or 3 blocks that's around this neighborhood. And the reason for this is just simply because due to how specific or how broad we want to include in the search, and sometimes we notice that users, may recall something like, I used to remember there was, a peach tree right around the corner or somewhere around here. I just can't seem to find it. Or, you know what, I'm exhausted of host trees in this area. I need to move to a larger area. Or, let's say if you were trapping in this region up here, now you need to move 500 feet away, and you're like, I need to find something down here to use. Okay? So I'm just going to move my map to here. I'll click on the host advisor, and I'll select the pest type. Okay, I'll just pick Medfly, and actually I will not use my current location because that's not where I am. I will pick a new location. Now, typically, if your GPS is working, you could use this and it'll find from where you are, right? But I'm going to select a new location, and I'm going to say right here. Okay, and I'm going to select the pest type. I'm going to click my Medfly. Okay, and the selection location is here. I'm going to ask it to find hosts. So it's saying that there's a handful of orange trees here that I can use and lemon trees. If I were to click on an orange tree, like let's say this one, it would take me to this specific orange tree. Go back to search. If I were to click on this next orange tree, it will be the one next door. Go back to search. Let's go down here. It will actually zoom me or take me to that property once it's been searched. Now, the good news and the bad news is the host advisor is limited to whatever is only programmed into the database. So if there are new updates or different seasons will occur, it's not able to anticipate some of that. So that's where the limitation of the host advisor is. However, I think personally, and most of the feedback that's come back from a lot of the trappers and users in the field simply have told us that they feel like they know what's in season and what's not, and they want more control as to the information of their search. They don't want a machine to tell them what tree they should use. They just need to know what tree is where. So that ties us over to the search menu. The search menu performs in a similar fashion where it's searching the extent of the map. Let's go ahead and click on search, and I'm just going to type in peach, and I'll hit search. Okay. Notice the extent of the map. All the peach tree locations have now shown up. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Notice that these areas have not indicated any searches. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove peach, and let's say I'm going to type orange now and search. Notice now the extent of anything that has orange, including mandarin orange, will show up. But if I zoom out, these areas here have no searches. Okay, if I were to click on this first orange, it's going to zoom me to that feature right here. Okay, I'm going to go click on the search bar up here again. Click on the next one. That's just the tree next door. Okay, go back to search. And you can see by zooming around and highlighting and selecting and indicating which tree that is being referenced, you can hopefully find a site. So I find that this tool is so much more powerful than the host advisor. Okay. So to summarize real quick, we've learned how to start and end work. We've learned how the trapping dashboard functions in terms of extrapolating the physical trapping books to show you grids and maps and allow you to be able to service traps once we get to that point. We can see that manage hosts and manage sites are very similar to how the admin app works in adding basically creating a new parcel, and managing hosts allows you to add a tree. Now the multi-site also performs similarly, but we'll show that at a later time because I feel like it's a little bit more of an advanced feature. And the host advisor just allows you to search whatever's in the database in terms of the information that we've entered and show us a specific result of what's available. Personally, like I said, I feel like it's limited, and the search tool that searches for the actual tree itself seems to be so much more powerful. Okay. The search tool can also search for a specific address. So let's say we're looking at this house, 5319 Mountain Springs Ranch. Personally, I feel that the search is very specific. So let's say if this was 5319 North Mountain Springs or South Mountain Springs, if you typed in the wrong thing in order, it wouldn't show up. I find that it's best just to search by the address based on the extent of the map, and then it will show you all the sites with 5319 as the address, and that way you won't have to risk misspelling the street name or something. So if I were to change this to 5319, now I'm searching a wider area. Well, I guess that's the only one that's here. If there are some duplicates, it might show you two addresses with two different street names, and then you just kind of select it from there. Okay, so that wraps up deployment and the first portion of CalTrap on how to deploy traps, remove them, and and we'll kind of we've discussed about host trees, adding and removing them, and that wraps up that part. The next portion that we will be launching into is how to service traps, relocate traps, and go on from there. All right, now that we're back, let's go ahead and dive in to servicing and relocations. I'm gonna pick up where I just left off, and let's get right into it, okay? I'm just gonna go ahead and use this particular site. I know that we have some traps that are there, but not there. So once you're logged in and you started work, let me add some traps to this area, and then we'll kind of go from there, okay? Let's go ahead and select the peach tree. I'm going to deploy a trap, and I'm just going to treat this as a combo site, so I will add McPhail and Jackson's here. Okay. Select the trap. I'm going to select a McPhail. I'm going to deploy another trap. Click on save. Okay. Go back. I'm now going to add a medfly trap. Save. Okay. I'm going to go back. I'm going to add a melon. Save. Okay. Go back. Select an OF trap. Deselect this because that's the last trap, and go ahead and save. So just now, you saw that I deployed 4 traps in sequence, back to back, and it took about maybe 20 seconds or so. So once you're familiar with the application, it actually does go that fast. If you click on the site, you can see everything, all your traps are right here. Okay. So now let's assume that 6 weeks have passed. Normally the app will tell you once you click on a trap if it's due for relocation or not. Right, there is a clock that's initiated based on all the information that's listed here. But let's just go ahead and relocate early. Oh, actually, before we do that, my mistake. Let's go ahead and service that trap. Okay. So here, this is the McPhail. I'm going to go ahead and click on service. Now, there's also unable to service, new trap, and remove, and all these other buttons down here. But let's just start with service. Once you click on service, again, the message kicks in because the GPS is not here, that I need to be nearby. But I'm going to go ahead and override that. And it's going to ask me what I did. Did I inspect the trap? Yeah, sure did. Okay. Did I bait the trap? Well, this is assuming that you put up a new McPhail. So, okay, yes, I did do that. Did you have any samples? Did you were not able to get the sample for whatever reason? Maybe you checked the trap, but the trap broke, so you only collected some, whatever the reason is for that. If you click on skip sample, it's going to ask you for a reason. Go ahead and click on this, and maybe it was a dry McPhail, there's a missing insert, of course it doesn't apply here, accidental breakage, damage trap, other, so on and so forth. Okay, let's cancel. Oh. If you accidentally exit that screen, to get back, go ahead and click on search. Okay. Service. Okay. So you inspected it, and then let's say you baited the trap, of course. Now let's say you document the samples. What did you find? Did you find a Mexican fruit fly? Did you find one of these other flies in there? Obviously it's a McPhail, so we'll pick Mexican fruit fly, but obviously you can find an OF in there as well, right? So let's say it's a Mexican fruit fly. Okay. And how many did you find? Just one? Okay. Now, if you were to stop here, you could just go ahead and click save, and you'll be done. But what if you found more than one fly that's in that trap? Go ahead and click on add sample. Then you would change it again. Now the sample that you had just added was that one Mexican fruit fly sample. Now let's say we also found an OF in that same trap. Go ahead and click done. And leave it as is when you save. You don't need to add sample again, okay? But let's say you made a mistake and you click add sample. Now, if you were to save this menu, what you would have done is you would have submitted one Mexican fruit fly, one Oriental, and another Oriental fruit fly. I know the layout's a little bit confusing, but once you kind of get into the groove of this, it'll make a little bit more sense. So once you realize you made this mistake, you can take one out by simply checking the one that you want to remove and click on remove the selected sample. Now if you were to save, this would be documented that this is what you found here. Go ahead and click save. And it says you successfully serviced that trap. Okay, I'm going to click on it again and click on this trap. Okay. Now, if for some reason you get to the site and you're unable to service that trap, go ahead and click on this. And it's going to ask you for a reason why. So things like construction, gate locked, loose dog, crime scene, or other. Obviously, these menu settings can be changed at any given time. We're just going with these for right now. So let's say the gate was locked, and that was the reason. Done. And then go ahead and save. Notice that when we were unable to service a trap, that's the same as skipping a trap. And that the McPhail has now turned red. Right? Earlier we were talking about the three colors, green, orange, and red. So this is the example of what happened. We just wanted to make it red so that it brings to your attention that something is up with this trap. So if we go in here, the trap status indicated that the trap was skipped. So in order to resolve that, we need to go ahead and service it, and then it'll be okay. Now let's say you get there and the trap is missing or broken or something like that. You're going to need to put out a new trap. So that's what this function is for. Go ahead and click on it. Okay. And it's going to say, what's the reason for the new trap? You click on this. Was it an accidental breakage where you broke the trap? It was found broken. It was like that when you got there. It was missing. Or just routine service. So routine service is, let's say the trap is dirty or defective or something like that. Not necessarily broken, but we're just replacing it. This reasoning kind of lines up more with Jackson traps more than McPhail's, but it's there nonetheless. Okay, so let's say this one, we came back and replaced it because it was missing. So if it's missing, it falls under the same category as missing and replace. It's just that we've changed the terminology and make it all under new trap, because that's essentially what's happening. Go ahead and click save. Okay. Notice when you did that, the traps have now turned back to green. All right. Let's go back. Let's pick on the McPhail again. Obviously, if we remove it, the trap will go away. If you rotate it, we will have to have another tree to rotate it into. So right now, we're not going to be able to do that. Let's go ahead and relocate, and I'll try to relocate these traps to the site up here. Okay, just so we can see error messages for distance and other geofencing logic that has been programmed into here. Okay, let's go ahead. So now we've picked the McPhail. Let's go ahead and relocate. Now, when you relocate a trap, it's going to ask you for a reason. If you leave it blank, that's fine. We understand that that's routine. But if you have to relocate early or due to homeowner refusal and stuff like that, you can make a note here. So for this one, I'm just going to put testing. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. Now this will introduce the concept of a shelved trap for relocation. Okay. Let's click OK. So when we had relocated the trap, that trap that was originally here has now moved to the trap shelf. And then you see that's the McPhail that we had just relocated. The easiest concept to explain what a trap shelf is basically it's the back of your truck or the bed of your truck. Because the trap is currently in the field, in order to relocate it, it needs to you need to physically be close to that site. So logically, it wouldn't make sense for you to be at one tree, let's say here, then drive to this next home, be next to this tree, and then move that one trap. And then drive back to grab the next Jackson and repeat this multiple times. And you have to be next to the tree because of geofencing rules. So by creating this trap shelf, we would have essentially solved actually multiple problems. The first thing that it will solve is you're able to grab a collective amount of traps and move them all at once. The second thing it does is it allows us to bypass the rule where you have to be right next to the tree, because you're not at a particular tree anymore. You're from this entity known as a trap shelf. And so once it passed through the trap shelf, certain rules can be suppressed, if you will. And therefore, that 250-foot rule doesn't apply anymore and allow you to actually relocate without realizing. Now, obviously, we're thinking, wait, we don't want the trappers to know that. Well, actually, and quite frankly, when you're working in the field and you're doing this, it's so seamless that you don't even think about it. But originally, when we had these hard rules set, it was very frustrating to try to relocate. It was actually very tedious. And we saw that some people ended up doing something such as remove the traps at this location and then redeploying new traps, and they considered that to be relocation, which is not true. Okay. So let me go back and I'll close this. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the other 3 Jacksons to relocate as well. But let me go ahead and service them before I relocate them, right? That seems to be the natural flow of things. You service it, and then you relocate it. So I'm going to click on the McPhail trap, go ahead and service it. And then I also want to show you some of the differences, right? Here, it says the trap's inspected. Did you bait it? Yes. And did you put a new insert? Okay, yes. And in this case, there's no samples. Okay, fine. Let's just save it. Okay. Click on this, on the site again. Let's go to the next trap, the melon. We're going to service it. Okay. Did you inspect it? New insert. Now you notice for this one, it doesn't mention anything about baiting, right? And the reason why is for melon and OF, it's because we use a wick. When the timing comes for baiting to occur, it was the option of new wick will show up. But right now you see how it says last baited is not applicable, and that's just terminology, okay? But the new wick option will show up. Let's just go ahead and save. Okay. Let's click on this. Go to OF. Go ahead and service. Okay. And yeah. Go ahead and save. Okay. So we've just serviced the 3 Jacksons. Now let's go ahead and relocate them. Click on the McPhail. I'm going to click on Relocate. Okay. I'm not going to enter any reasoning. Save. Okay. If you click back on the trap shelf, you see that there are now 2 traps. Okey-doke. Click back on the parcel, and notice that there's less and less traps on the site, right? Click on Melon. Go ahead and relocate. Okay. And save. Okay. Go ahead, click back in here. OF. Relocate. Okay. Save. Okay. Now, typically, when there are no more traps on a site like this, the site will turn gray, just as if we had removed a trap from that particular site. Okay, but obviously we can't see because it stayed gray the whole time. Now we're going to look at relocating into this site next door. Right now, we know this, of course, isn't ideal. It's so close, but I'm doing it on purpose to show you the 500-foot rule in effect. Okay, let me click on this site now. Okay, so new site. We can see that there are 2 apricots, peach, apple, and a plum. All right, and just for the demonstration purposes, I will put 1 trap in each tree. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the first apricot tree. Okay, I'm going to deploy. Okay, and I'm going to deploy a McPhail. And I'm not going to select this because only 1 trap is going to go into this tree. Okay, I'm going to click Save. Now, the system automatically recognizes that this is the same grid or subgrid as the trap that is on the current trap shelf. That's why it's prompting you with a message saying a site already contains a trap of this type within the configured distance. Would you like to proceed anyways? Just press OK. And oh, my mistake. That message said that you're basically relocating too close. This next message is saying that there are shelf traps that could be placed on this host. This is the one that's pulling up from the trap shelf. Would you like to deploy a trap from the trap shelf? And you go ahead and press OK. The McPhail shows up because that's the one we selected. Go ahead and check that one. So this is from the trap shelf itself that we're relocating back into the tree. Go ahead and save. Again, we get another confirmation message asking the shelf trap needs to be deployed at least 500 feet away from the trap's original location in order to relocate it. Would you like to proceed anyways? This is where you can say, you know what, shucks, okay, it is less than 500 feet away. I can cancel, and it goes back into the shelf. Or you're like, you know what, it's maybe 490 feet. It's close. It's the last thing I need. And then you could override it by clicking OK. So I'm going to press OK. And now you can kind of see we've moved that McPhail over. Okay. Let's go back in, and I will finish relocating the last 3 traps. I'm going to click on here. We're going to put the next one into the peach. Go ahead and deploy. Okay. McPhail. And go ahead and save. Okay. Message about shelf traps. I'm selecting this is the one. I'm saving it. We get another 500 feet warning. That's fine. Okay. We're going to go for the apple, and then the last one will be the plum. Click on the site. Let's look for the apple. Deploy. Select your pest type. Melon. save. Okay. Okay. Select the melon trap, click save, and press OK. Click on the site again. We're going to go back to the plum. Go ahead and click deploy. We're going to select the Oriental fruit fly trap. I'm going to save. That's fine. Yes, trap shelf. I'm selecting it. I'm going to click save. Now let's say for this one, for whatever reason, let me change my mind. Like, you know what? I shouldn't put this here. It's too close, right? As if it was the first one. I'm going to click cancel. And that activity stopped, right? You go back and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go do it anyway. So I'm going to go back to plum, deploy the trap. Okay. Click on this. Go back to OF. Go ahead and save. You get the same message again. Oh. Select the trap, go to save, 500 feet warning, press OK, and it'll carry the rest of the trap. Now once you do that, if you go back to the trap shelf, you notice that there are no shelf traps at this time, because that's everything has been relocated. From here, I'm going to show you how to rotate a trap. Now that we have more trees on board, I'll be able to move the traps around. I will rotate this McPhail from the one apricot to another apricot. Okay, so here's the McPhail trap. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. Now typically if you're there on site and you're going to want to service that trap before rotating it, right? Because that's what you essentially did. So sometimes what we do in the field, or whatever the action that takes place, may not reflect in the same way that's in the system, right? So we have to be a kind of more structured for the database. Rotate trap, okay, that's fine. And now it's giving you a list of what it can rotate into. Obviously there are 4 other trees on this property, so these 4 trees are listed. It wouldn't make sense for you to rotate into the same tree, so I'm going to rotate into this apricot. Okay, and the reason could be as simple as no more fruit. Okay, save, and then we can see that the McPhail has now jumped to this apricot. Alrighty. Now, one of the biggest differences for the rotation of a trap versus relocation is that when the trap moved from this apricot to this one, the clock did not reset for that 6 weeks. So if it was here for 4 weeks, it would continue to be here for this particular site for another 2 weeks, then it's due for relocation. So the logic has been set for that as well. So to recap, we just learned that when you select a particular parcel and you're going into service or unable to service, or put up a new trap because of missing and replace, or if the old trap is dirty and it just needs a new one. We also showed you how to relocate a trap and how to rotate the trap. And zoom to feature again just helps you to center it on the map. The information down here is just miscellaneous, but this has a lot to do with metadata that is tied in for the logic on this side. I know it's a little bit messy and kind of confusing, but just kind of focus on this information up here and you'll be okay. So now that you're done with the work, let me go back and go ahead and remove all these traps. Okay. Notice that the menu is getting smaller as each trap is being removed. And of course, after all the traps have been removed, the site turns gray. Again, I'm still a little bit puzzled at why the symbology just kind of sticks. I know we tried to refresh it a couple of times, but I still believe that it's because of the recording session for the iPad that's causing this. I'm hoping that once I end the session and refresh, all of this, all the symbology should go away. All right, so to recap, that kind of wraps up the brief overview of the functionality of the app. Now, some of the questions that people may have is regarding to, well, what if certain things don't load, right? So if things don't load, it could be something as simple as just trying to restart the app, or if you're getting some very interesting errors and it doesn't seem to make any sense, we found that maybe reinstalling the app can also help. Earlier, I wanted to show you how this geolocation button works. Let me see if I can zoom out further and see if it, yeah, it's not picking up a GPS signal, so it's going to have a hard time. No, it did find me. So right now I am here, and this is the route that we're working on. So it just doesn't happen to be in the same area, but of course if you're there, that's what this button does. Okay, and it's very useful. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go ahead and end work for the day. Okay, I'm going to make this 5200, and then training completed. Go ahead and check the accuracy statement and stop work. All right, so to summarize, we kind of went through all the menu items to search things, start and end work, how the trapping dashboard works, managing hosts, host advisor to look up certain profiles in the past in the database and see what it matches up to, managing sites, and how the trap shelf works in terms of helping you relocate. One tip to add for the trap shelf is if you happen to relocate backwards, meaning you go ahead and put up a new McPhail at the new site before collecting the old one, just because of routing preference or efficiency, how you would handle that in real life versus in the application is just slightly different. What you want to do is, of course, in real life, you're going to go ahead and put the new trap at the new location, drive to the old location where the old trap is at, go ahead and service it, and then finish that servicing. Then you go into the iPad, service that old trap because you're at that location, right? You need to be nearby in order to service it. Service that trap. Once you're done servicing it, then go ahead and relocate it. Now, when you relocate it, obviously it's going to go onto your trap shelf. And once it's on your trap shelf, you can move it as far as you want without breaking any rules. And then you can go ahead and put it at that new site. So what you do in real life versus how you capture it into the iPad may be a little bit different, but that's just some advice on how you could handle that. Now, as odd as it may be, you can maybe grab all the McPhails or all the Jacksons in a given grid and then relocate them all at once if need be. Now, I know that's a very strange scenario, but the trap shelf has that kind of flexibility. Now, obviously, some folks may ask, Well, shouldn't we have some rules to prevent them from doing such a thing? Well, I think some of the accountability still falls back on the trapper or the user, and that's what the QC process is for, right? To make sure they're doing their work properly. Now, from here, you can see that I have started or ended work successfully, and now I am back online. Oh, there you go. Now, if you happen to need to switch users or sign in as someone else, I guess now we're kind of segueing into other features and troubleshooting tips and things like that. You can click on the I want to button, and you can sign out as the user, which will take you back to the original login screen, and then you would sign in there. Okay. This side of the menu, more enhancement features will be coming later on, but for the time being, it's just left blank, so it seems a little useless, but we're saving room for additional information later on. Now, if you are a little bit more tech savvy and you want to see some of the error logs and how data is captured in the event something goes wrong, you can go to I want to. You can go to settings. And these are just some settings, preferences for the app to kind of display things. But what I want you to bring your attention to is this log viewer down here. If you click on log viewer, it will show filters. You can turn debugging on, info on, warning, or errors. Obviously, there aren't any errors to show right now, so we're okay. But if you're running into some issues, you might want to turn on debugging mode, so it kind of captures all the steps and then maybe shows you where it starts to fail. Okay? Yeah. So that's it. That kind of wraps up the introduction to CalTrap on the iPad. Hopefully, you're able to gather some insight onto how it works, and hopefully see the workflow that has been designed into this application. If you have any additional information, please visit our website at caltrap-info.com, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you so much.